talk about the Iran situation, if you'd like for me to address that. Obviously, it depends on what you're talking about in terms of use of bomb. I don't think that that's the first thing that ought to be thrown out as consideration in our discussion of that situation down there. Obviously, there are basically three choices that we have: sanctions, regime change, or a military option, or a fourth, I suppose, if you consider doing nothing and reverting back to kind of a Cold War strategy of a war of containment to deal with it. I think that we made some progress on sanctions, but not nearly enough. It's hard to believe that the Russians and the Chinese will sign off on anything in the Security Council that would really put teeth into those sanctions. But efforts are being made. Our European friends have tightened up some of their exports. But Iran is very vulnerable, I think, in a lot of different ways. Their economy is in bad shape. Inflation is high. Unemployment is high. They import about 40% of their gasoline because of lack of refining capacity. There are demonstrations by various groups. You hear reports of Iranian Guard being killed from time to time. And we have a lot of friends in Iran who apparently feel that their leader is trying to drive them off of a militant religious extremism cliff, and they don't want to go there. So some of these problems might work in our favor, especially if we ratcheted the sanctions a bit more. I would think that certainly a blockade would be a possibility if we could get the international cooperation to do that. If we, in fact, were all reading off the same page and saw the nature of the threat, as I believe it exists. That would be one way to hopefully make sure that you didn't have to go to the military option. For all the reasons that I've just given, I think regime change might be an option. Who do you get after that? Well, there would not be any lessening, probably, of the national feeling that they have certain legitimate nuclear rights, peaceful nuclear programs. But certainly you would have a decent chance of getting someone who is much less extreme in the administration of the regime that's there now. Ultimately, you cannot take a military option off the table. You're dealing with a country where terrorism and state sponsorship, go hand in hand. They are responsible for many of the activities of Hamas in Gaza, of Hezbollah in Lebanon, of the Taliban now in Afghanistan, which they're assisting, the world sponsor of terrorism. Not to mention what they're doing in Iraq. So they now have the missile capability of hitting our troops, of hitting Israel, of hitting part of Europe. And for many years they've been working on ICBM capability with the help of Russia. And we don't know exactly what stage they're in there. So it is a very, very serious threat. But the first thing we've got to do before we decide on a final plan of action is make sure that all the friends of world stability and freedom look at this threat and the nature of it the same way, to the extent possible. And that we're all in this together. And that the forces of civilization should be aligned against the forces of nihilism in this world. And this is a part of that larger battle.